During the 2024 film Nosferatu, we encounter Count Orlok, a terrifying creature who stalks his prey and brings disease into a growing German city. His body itself is in ruins, a decay of sorts, and he brings this pestilence with him. The story of Nosferatu and that of Gothic literature is keenly concerned with decay and ruin. Here, among the many books and films classified as Gothic literature, we observe whispers of bygone civilizations, flirtations between the living and the dead, power of secrets, as well as the awesome power of the past. Beyond shaping storytelling, we can observe relics of this in ourselves, in contemporary travel, and our own interactions with the past. In this video, I explore decay and ruin through considering critical examples of Gothic literature and examine the ways writers have explored these themes through urban landscapes and the human body. I'm Madeleine Rose-Jones, and I study history, literature, and culture. Welcome to Snowy Fictions. In Gothic literature, decay and ruin serve as far more than mere atmosphere. It functions as psychological architecture, making visible the invisible forces that haunt us, whether it is a crumbling castle or a monastery lost to time. These work as physical manifestations of deeper anxieties about time, mortality, and perhaps innocence and evil. These deteriorating spaces embody architectural trauma, buildings that remember previous inhabitants and those currently within. In works like Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher, the mansion mirrors the psychological fracturing of its inhabitants, suggesting that physical and mental decay are inseparable. The Gothic ruin reveals what the conscious mind tries to suppress, that beneath every ordered facade lies a potential for disorder. It's fascinating how these spaces operate symbolically. A decaying aristocratic estate doesn't just represent old stones crumbling, it embodies the collapse of entire social orders, the corruption festering within places, and our collective anxiety about what happens when foundations we've long trusted prove unstable. Sometimes, these decayed castles and structures are symbolic of civilization itself, our memories, and secrets best kept lost and buried. Or they represent those who've come before us, but have vanished into the pages of time. The past, after all, is never truly buried. It's merely concealed, waiting to emerge. I can certainly see why these places often come with ghosts, vampires, and horrid creatures that blur the lines between the living and the dead. From a psychological perspective, these architectural nightmares externalizes our own dark corridors and forgotten rooms, full of uncomfortable truths, memories perhaps. The Gothic tradition understands that we're all, in some sense, haunted and contain within us both grandeur and decay, beauty and corruption, existing in that unsettling space between what we were and who we are becoming. The theme of decay and ruin reached critical awareness in 19th century Gothic literature, reflecting profound cultural anxieties about rapid social transformation and imperial expansion. The Romantic movement's valorization of ruins as sublime aesthetic objects intersected powerfully with Gothic sensibilities, creating a melancholic literary atmosphere that spoke to contemporary politics. The French Revolution, the 1848 European revolutions, and ongoing social unrest had demonstrated that seemingly permanent institutions could crumble overnight, and Gothic ruins became potent symbols of this uncertain reality. Under Queen Victoria, Britain's expanding historiographical consciousness manifested in simultaneous fascination with and anxiety about temporal cycles of rise and decline. Percy Bysshe Shelley's Ozymandias from 1818 epitomizes this preoccupation. The poem's colossal wreck in the desert speaks directly to the instability power transforming Egyptian antiquity into a Gothic meditation on inevitable decline. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, likewise, employs classical and oriental ruins as psychological landscapes where Victor confronts consequences of his transgressive ambitions, particularly in the desolate Alpine and Arctic settings that echo ancient desolation. Bryan's Eastern Tales transformed Ottoman decay into Gothic atmosphere, presenting crumbling harems and abandoned palaces as symbols of both exotic allure and civilizational decline. The genre's obsession with crumbling castles, abandoned monasteries, and desert wastelands reflected not mere aesthetic preference, but profound philosophical uncertainty about permanence, progress, and Britain's own eventual fate within the grand cycles of civilizational rise and fall. In Gothic literature, the human body represents the ultimate sin of decay and ruin, a flesh-bound architecture subject to corruption, transformation, and unholy resurrection. Physical deterioration turns into a gateway to supernatural existence, transforming decay from ending into grotesque beginning. In Robert Eggers' Nosferatu, this tradition is brilliantly exemplified, presenting Count Orlok as a being whose advanced decomposition paradoxically grants him immortal power. His plague-ravaged form, simultaneously corpse and predator, embodies the Gothic central anxiety about the preciousness between life and death. The film's visceral depiction, bodily horror, echoes classical works like Bram Stoker's Dracula, where the vampire's physical corruption spreads like contagion, transforming both victims and environments into Gothic spaces of dread. This bodily decay operates symbolically across centuries of Gothic expression. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein presents reanimated flesh as the ultimate ruin, dead tissue grotesquely reformed into a mockery of life. Contemporary works continue this exploration, with The Walking Dead television series transforming entire populations into decaying vessels, whilst films like Crimson Peak and The Shape of Water present bodies caught between the human and monstrous states. Here, these corrupted bodies contaminate their surroundings. Vampires blight landscapes, werewolves turn forests into hunting grounds, and zombies transform cities into necropolises. The Gothic understands that bodily decay is never contained. It spreads, infecting architecture, relationships, and society as a whole. The enduring power of bodily Gothic lies in its recognition that our flesh houses both our humanity and our monstrosity, that decay doesn't simply end us, but potentially transforms us into something far more terrifying than death itself. The Gothic literary tradition's preoccupation with decay and ruin has profoundly shaped contemporary tourism, transforming fictional architectural anxieties into lucrative experimental commodities. Romania's marketing of Transylvania during Halloween exemplifies this. The country has capitalized on Bram Stoker's fictional Dracula castle by promoting Bran Castle as a Gothic destination, despite its tenuous historical connection to Vlad the Impaler. This represents a fascinating cultural moment, literature married to history. More broadly, the emergence of dark tourism, visiting sites associated with death, disaster, and the macabre, directly echoes Gothic literature's fascination with mortality and decay. From Edinburgh's underground vaults to Salem's witch trials locations, tourists seek the visceral experience, Gothic spaces that literature first made psychologically compelling. The success of ghost tours in cities worldwide demonstrates how the Gothic tradition has found beauty and meaning in ruins, transforming urban decay into narrative possibility. The contemporary popularity of visiting authentic medieval ruins, Tintern Abbey, Fountains Abbey, countless European castle remains, reveals how Gothic literature has fundamentally altered our relationship with decay in history. Rather than viewing these crumbling structures as mere archaeological curiosities, we now approach them while seeking atmospheric encounters with the sublime passage of time. These visits become acts of literary pilgrimage, where tourists unconsciously recreate the melancholic wandering of Gothic protagonists through these landscapes of ruin. ruins. This behaviour demonstrates our continued psychological need for controlled encounters with mortality and impermanence, the very anxieties Gothic literature first articulated. They offer safe ways to confront our deepest fears about time's passage and our own inevitable dissolution. Our first example comes from a Gothic classic, one that arose in the peak of the European Enlightenment, a time supposedly embodying rationality, science, and liberalism. Horace Walpole's The Castle of Otranto establishes a relationship between Gothic architecture and psychological terror. The castle itself becomes a living entity, its ancient stones seemingly complicit in the supernatural events that unfold within its walls. When the enormous helmet crashes through the castle structure in the opening scene, we witness Walpole's brilliant fusion of physical and metaphysical decay, as well as the emerging Gothic tone that characterises the entire work. Walpole transforms the castle's labyrinth passages and underground vaults into physical manifestations of guilt and concealed history. The structure's decay mirrors the moral corruption of Manfred's usurped rule. Every crumbling stone suggests the inevitable collapse of illegitimate power. The castle's hidden chambers and secret corridors become psychological spaces where crimes of the past refuse to remain buried. This architectural symbolism established a template that would influence Gothic literature for centuries. The understanding that our built environments can embody our deepest anxieties about time, legitimacy, and the return of repressed trauma. Walpole demonstrated that decay is also a revelation of sorts, exposing the foundational instabilities that threaten all seemingly solid structures. Okay, here is an absolute favourite of mine. Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca offers perhaps the most psychologically sophisticated treatment of decay and ruin in Gothic literature, transforming the traditional, crumbling castle into a uniquely modern exploration of psychological architecture. Madeleine represents a fascinating inversion of conventional Gothic decay. Rather than ancient stones withered by time, we encounter a house that maintained its physical grandeur whilst concealing profound moral and emotional corruption. The estate's apparent perfection masks the rotting foundation of Maxim's marriage to Rebecca, creating ruin that exists not in physical deterioration but in the poisonous secrets that permeate every single pristine room. What distinguishes du Maurier's approach is her understanding that in the 20th century, our most potent ruins are psychological rather than architectural. The narrator's tortured relationship with Rebecca's memory transforms Madeleine into a kind of mental labyrinth where past and present collapse into one another. The house becomes an archive of traumatic knowledge. Every object, from Rebecca's monogrammed brushes to her preserved bedroom, functions as fragmented memories that refuse to decay naturally. The Gothic tradition's preoccupation with the past's refusal to remain buried finds its most sophisticated expression here, where the true ruin exists, not in crumbling stones, but in the character's inability to escape the pull of concealed trauma. The novel's climatic burning of Madeleine represents both traditional Gothic purgation and something more psychologically complex. Unlike the straightforward destruction of corrupt spaces in early Gothic works, Madeleine's destruction feels both liberating and profoundly melancholic. We witness not just the clearing away of evil, but the obliteration of beauty that has become inseparable from suffering. Du Maurier demonstrates that in modern Gothic literature, decay and ruin have become internalized, psychological phenomena that require not just physical destruction, but the painful relinquishing of cherished illusions about love, memory, and the possibility of innocent happiness. This is a wonderful book, and I highly urge you to read it. I hope to have demonstrated here the multi-dimensional yet critical role themes of decay and ruin have played in Gothic literature. Far from being about a mere haunted house, the notions authors have of decay are symbolic of cultural and historical attitudes, as well as philosophy and religion. Whether we are discussing a Halloween excursion to Transylvania or the Shrieking Shack in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, we can see decay and ruin shape Gothic literature in many surprising surprising ways. But back to you. What are your thoughts on decay and ruin in Gothic literature? Do you have a favourite setting? Comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and start a discussion. Subscribe for frequent videos about history, literature, and culture. I also have a mailing list, blog, and creative writing classes, all linked below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Goodbye for now, and happy Halloween.